We are so glad that every one of you have joined us for Mother's Day. I want to honor all our mothers because being a mother is not an easy task. Mothers believe in their kids and believe in their dreams. They drive them here, there, and everywhere, and then here, there, and everywhere back again. They cook meals, they slave over meals, they invent meals. They take care of all those bad dreams in the middle of the night. And honestly, they are the only one to find the only working pencil in the house when homework mysteriously appears at the last minute. In fact, they are able to answer the call of where's my shoes, where's my phone, where's my glasses, from the big people at the house too. Moms are those people who can find anything. And I just want you to know, moms, we do honor and appreciate you. Let's give all our mothers a big hand. Yeah, you guys are the greatest. Now, we took a road trip with our 3 children to California. Think about it. Road trip to California. It started out good. We saw some amazing things, but it went pretty bad. Pretty fast. In fact, my kids still call it the road trip from hell. On the way back, we stopped at the Grand Canyon, which is one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. We were there about 5 minutes before we heard, "Can we go? I'm bored." But kids aren't the only ones that complain. Us big people complain a lot too. One honest person in the entire auditorium. Hey, we really do. Along with criticizing and lying, complaining is one of the problems we have with our big fat mouths. Turn to your neighbor and tell them, she's going to be preaching at you all day long. When I think about complaining in the Bible, I automatically think of God's chosen people, the Israelites. When they were in bondage, they complained and complained and complained. Not that I blame them because it was hard. But the problem was when God did miracle after miracle after miracle. When he sent those 10 plagues that caused Pharaoh to release them out of slavery, and when he parted the Red Sea so they could walk on dry ground, and then he just caused that same Red Sea to close up on Pharaoh's armies, destroying their enemies forever. When he sent bread from heaven and water out of a rock, do you know what these people still did? Complained. You're right. They griped, they complained, they whined. Exodus 16:3. If only the Lord had just killed us back in Egypt, they moaned. There we would have sat around, pots filled with meat and all the bread we wanted, but now you brought us in this wilderness to starve us to death. You know that sounds just like you. Just like me. And so before we criticize them too much, since criticizing is one of those things we're not supposed to do anymore. So before we criticize them, let me ask, how many of you have complained this week? Be honest. Come on, I'm watching. Okay, some honest people here. Some need the lesson on lying again. Okay, how many have complained today? Okay, well, it's early yet. There's time. I think the children of Israel weren't the only professional complainers. I think we all excel at complaining. Now, Moses, though, told them something that should have stopped complaining forever. And it's something that should stun us even to silence. He said in Exodus 16, verse 8, "Who are we? You are not grumbling against us, but against the Lord." Wow. Here they thought they were complaining against Moses and Aaron, but in reality, God saw it as them complaining about him. I mean, that's serious stuff, because what if every time we complain about the weather or the traffic or some random person, God views it as we're complaining against him? I want you to think about it for just a moment. God said, you're complaining against me. And when you and I indulge in complaining, what if God looks at it as us complaining against him? Okay, let's stop. Let's make this personal. What if every time you complain, God thinks you're complaining about him? I want us to make this personal. I don't want us to just sit here thinking about, so-and-so should really be in this message because they complain all the time. No. I want you to listen to this message through the lens of your own complaining. I want you to think about it. What is it that you complain about the most? Now be honest. I'm going to be honest with you. I complain the most about my schedule. I got to do this, and I got to do that, and I got to do this and that, and now they're adding more to my plate. Don't they know how much I've got on my plate already? I'm exhausted. I'm beyond exhausted. Why? Yeah, see? I'm very comfortable saying those things because that's my go-to complaint, my schedule. Well, maybe for you is you might be complaining that you're not married. Or if you're married, you're complaining about the person you're married to. You might be complaining the money is tight, or the car is falling apart, or you might be complaining about the traffic or Chicago's bipolar weather. Where is spring? Okay, I digress. I'm complaining. But, you might complain about the people you work with or the boss you work for, or you might complain that there's nothing on TV. The list could go on and on because there is no limit of things that we can complain about, folks. But what I want us to understand, I want us to realize, is that the problem really isn't the weather or the traffic or the summer programming on TV or lack thereof. The real problem is that we have taken our eyes off of God's goodness and placed it solely on ourselves. The root cause of the curse of constantly complaining is self-focus. I want you to think about that for the rest of this message. Now, the text I'm going to read in a moment was written by Paul, who had every right to complain. He really did. Paul wanted to go to Rome to preach the gospel because from Rome, he could really impact the whole world. But instead of going to Rome as a preacher, he was being taken there as a prisoner. The dream was a preacher. The reality was prisoner. He was being locked away 24 hours a day, chained to a different guard every 4 hours. And honestly, he was just there awaiting his execution. Now, if there was anybody who could complain about his situation, or it could have been Paul. Now, I know me. And I know for a fact that if I was Paul, I would complain a lot. I would say, God, this isn't fair. Why are you letting this happen to me? I've been faithful. I've been faithful when I was beat 5 times with 39 stripes and beaten with rods 3 times. times. And that time that I was stoned and left for dead, I was faithful when I experienced 3 different shipwrecks. Even that time I was left adrift in the sea for a night and a day. I've been faithful when I was hungry. I've been faithful when I was thirsty. I have been faithful when I was shivering with cold. I have been everything. I've given everything. I've sacrificed everything. I have been faithful to you. So why did you let this happen? You know how strategic Rome is. If you give me a chance, together we could change the entire world. But no, you got me in this prison, chained to this guard who stinks. Okay, that would have been what I would have said. I told you I excel at this art of complaining. But Paul didn't do that. This is what he wrote to the church at Philippi while he was in that jail cell. It's Philippians 2:14 and 15. Do everything without complaining and arguing, so that no one can criticize you. Live clean, innocent lives as children of God, shining like bright lights in a world full of crooked and perverse people. Wherever you go, whatever you do, Paul is saying, don't complain. And there's some very good reasons why we shouldn't. Scientists have discovered through research that the more you complain, the more it hardwires your brain to, guess what? Complain. The more negative you are, the more it hardwires your brain to go automatically to the negative. That's what happened to the children of Israel, really. They were already trained their brain to be complainers. They complained in captivity, so when God freed them, they were still complainers. Their brain was hardwired to do so. So we need to make a choice, I think, here today. We've got to choose to stop the complaining cycle. Turn to the person next to you and say, honey, you got to rewire your brain. Yeah. Because the more you complain, the more you complain. The more you see the negative, the more you see the negative. And it really is a problem because more people died in the wilderness from complaining than any other reason. You can check it. Count it up. I'm right. And it's significant because in one day, 23,000 died with sexual immorality in one day. But still, more people died from complaining than any other thing. That's how much your God hates complaining. Think about it. That's how much he hates complaining. 1 Corinthians 10 through 11 says, and don't grumble, and he's referring to the children of Israel, don't grumble as some of them did, and then were destroyed by the angel of death. These things happened to them as examples for us. They were written down to warn us who live at the end of the age. God's warning every one of us in this room how bad complaining really is. How very bad it is. And I don't know about you, but I want to heed Paul's warning. I don't want my brain to always go to the negative. I don't want my brain to be hardwired to complain. I want to stop that cycle. I want my brain to be hardwired to look for the good. I want to be looking for solutions, not complaining about problems. You know, Philippians 4:8 says, so keep your thoughts continually fixed on all that is authentic and real and honorable and admirable, beautiful and respectful, pure and holy, merciful and kind, and fasten your thoughts on every glorious work of God, praising Him always. So here's the thing. How many of you think we really shouldn't complain quite so much? Raise your hands. I agree with you. I don't think we should. And I think there's two things that we can do that will limit our complaining. And the first thing is this: change your circumstances. Number one, change your circumstances. If there's something negative going on in your life and you can do something about it, then do something about it. If there's something you wish you could change and you actually can, then change it. Change it. Now, I don't want to leave the impression with all of this that we should go around just kind of ignoring the bad. I'm not saying that. I mean, it's not a sin to see that something is wrong. Remember Nehemiah? You know, he was working in the fortress of Susa, and some family and friends came to him and told him that the walls around Jerusalem was broken down and the gates were burned with fire. And he was so upset. Do you know what he did? I'll tell you what he didn't do. He didn't complain. He didn't say, oh, this is horrible. Oh, they're so vulnerable. God's people will all be why isn't somebody? It's always somebody, right? Why isn't somebody doing something about it? No, he was grieved, yes. But he used his grief to move him into action. He did something about it. It was hard. I'm not saying it was easy. It was hard, but he rebuilt those walls. And so I'm telling you today, if there is something that you can do to change something, then change it. Don't complain about it. Don't put it on Facebook. Facebook has become the complaining center of the universe. You know, don't just complain about it. Don't post it on Facebook. If you can do something about it, do something about it. Do whatever you can, even if it's just a little thing, even if it's only going to put a dent in it. The point is, we need to shift our brains from complaining into doing. Turn to your neighbor and say, I told you she was going to talk right to you all morning long. It's really important. There's absolutely no reason to complain. Now, if there's something you do, do something. If there is nothing that you can do, and sometimes that is the case, then the second thing we need to do is change our perspective. Remember, if there's something you can do, do it. But if there is absolutely nothing you can do about a situation, you need to change your perspective. You need to change what you see in the situation. You need to change what you think about in the situation. You need to change what you say about the situation. Remember Paul? Remember we left him chained to the guard? The dream was to be a preacher in Rome, and he's a prisoner in Rome. And this is what he says in Philippians 2:17. But I will rejoice even if I lose my life, pouring it out like a liquid offering to God. Just like your faithful service is an offering to God, I want all of you to share in that joy. Even if I'm being poured out like a drink offering, I'm glad. Now that phrase actually comes from one very powerful Greek word called spendo, which means to spend all. It really is a powerful word. And the people in Paul's day understood that word. Because when the priests were to offer a sacrifice, they'd take an animal and they would put it on the altar, kill it, and begin to burn it as a burnt sacrifice to God. Then the person would take the most expensive liquid they had and offer it to the priest, and the priest would pour it over the burning sacrifice. What happens when you put liquid on something burning? It's hot enough flame, it just evaporates. It creates steam. It creates incense to God. Paul says, I am pouring out my life, holding back nothing. I am pouring out my life. Now, some think that he was referring to his ultimate sacrifice, his martyrdom, but I don't think so. And the reason why is that verb is a passive present tense. It wasn't about the sacrifice he would someday make. It was about the sacrifice he was making presently, every single day. Romans 12:1 says, so dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all that he has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind that he will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship him. Worshiping God isn't just raising our hands on Sunday. As wonderful and as powerful as it is, worshiping isn't just about the Sunday morning experience. Worshiping is about the way we live every single day. It is about pouring ourselves out to God. How could Paul, chained in a jail to a stinky guard, how could he pour out his life to God on a daily basis? He was able to do it because Paul was not the center of his life. Jesus was the center of his life. Paul wasn't the center of his own story. Jesus was the center of his story. We're talking about changing perspective here. And when it's all about me, well, then you're going to complain. When everything's happening to you and you think it's all about you, you are going to complain. But when you stop and you shift that perspective and you are no longer the center of your story, but Jesus is the center of your story, it changes the way you look at everything. It changes your perspective. Here he is, chained to Roman guard 24 hours a day. And this is what Paul says in Philippians 1:12 through 14. I want you to know, dear ones, that what has happened to me has not hindered, but helped my ministry of preaching the gospel, causing it to expand and spread to many people. For now the elite Roman guards and government officials overseeing my imprisonment have plainly recognized I am here because of my love for the Anointed One. And what I'm going through has actually caused many believers to become even more courageous in the Lord and to be bold and passionate to preach the Word of God, all because of my chains. Here's what Paul is saying. This is not what I was chosen. This was not my plan. But it's his. There's a lot of reasons I could complain about this, but because I can't change my circumstances, I'm going to change the way I look at my circumstances. And I know that all things work together for my good because I love God and I'm walking out His purposes. So even though this looks dark and is not what I would have chosen, I know that God can use me in the middle of it. I know it. I want to ask you, what are you chained to? What circumstances that you simply cannot change? It may be a painful relationship. It might be a work situation. It could be financial. It could be health issues. There's a lot of things we could be chained to, but this is what I want you to remember. If you can do something about it, do something about it. If you can pray, pray. If you can work hard, then work hard. If you can get counseling, get counseling. If you can seek help, seek help. If there is something that you can do, then do it. But if there is nothing that you can do about the situation, then you must change your perspective. If you can't change your circumstances, change your perspective. Change the way you look at it. Change the way you think about it. Change the way you talk about it. Rather than complaining about something that you can't possibly change, look for God's glory. Look for God's power. Look for God's mercy. Look for God's purposes. Shift that perspective. I believe, or I can believe, this is the worst thing that ever happened to me. Or I can look for some sign that God is going to use me in it. Or I can ask Him to do something in me because of it. And so can you. This situation may not be anything you would have ever chosen, but it could help you to pray a little more passionately. It could make you a little more like Christ. It could make you in a deeper, more intimate relationship with Him. It could cause you to have compassion for people that is going through stuff that you've never had before. And you can wake up 5 years from now and recognize you have a voice to speak into people's lives because of the things you endured through God's grace. This is not the end of you. This thing is not to destroy you. This thing is not to stop you. This thing is God's purposes at work in your life, and He can make you. He can make you through it. He can change you through it. You know, if you can do something. I keep saying this because I want you to get it. If you can do something about it, then do something about it. Don't complain. You're smart. You're resourceful. Get it done. But if there is nothing that you can do about it, change the way you look at it. Choose not just to see what is wrong. Choose to look for that which is right. Choose to see God's goodness. Choose to see God's grace. Choose to believe that God's got a plan. God's got a purpose. God has an assignment for you. Even in the midst of all that is going wrong in your life, God is still God. And He's not done with you, and you're not done yet. This is a comma. It's not a period. It's not over, folks. We've just got to kind of shift and change and make Jesus the center of our story instead of ourselves. We need to shift that. Choose to see His grace and His power at work, and then choose to worship Him in the midst of everything that you're going through. David said in Psalms 103:2, "Let all that I am praise the Lord. I may never forget May I never forget the good things he does for me. In everything, praise the Lord. I'm not saying for everything, but in it, pour your life out. That my life would be a drink offering. That I would choose to pour my life as a sacrifice to God in the way I live and in my praise. I choose to worship God, even if the prayer I am praying most passionately never gets answered. Even if I never get out of this situation, even if I never get to see my dreams fulfilled, I will praise the Lord. I will praise the Lord because He is God and He is the center. It's not about me. It's about Him and what He can do in me and through me in the midst of all that is going on. I'm talking to mamas here today, and I know that you understand what I'm about to say. Sometimes we want to remove all hurt from our kids, right? You know? And honestly, if there's something you can do something. But when there is nothing you can do, you gotta trust God. You got to trust that whatever they're going through, God is going to help them come out the other side more victorious and more in tune with Him. You got to trust God for your kids, because this is what I'm saying to you today. It's easy to trust God for yourself, but it's hard to trust God for your kids when they're going through stuff. It's harder to trust God for those we love than it is for ourselves. But I'm saying that your kids are not the center of your story. You are moms and you are dads, but your kids are not the center of the story. Jesus is the center of the story. And you got to trust Him. You got to trust Him. I'm saying this to somebody today. You got to trust Him. In the dark times, you got to trust Him. When everything is going wrong, you got to trust Him. You got to get your focus back on Him and not on the circumstances. It's time. It's time for some of us to shift and change our perspective so it is no longer self-focused, but it's God-focused. It's, here I am. I pour out my life. Every day I will live my life as a sacrifice to you. I trust you, and I know that you are going to make this turn out for my good and your glory. I trust you, everybody.
Thank you for watching the Christian Life Center YouTube channel. Don't stop here. Subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so that you can stay up to date with our weekly sermons. If you have any questions or want to connect with us through the week, you can go to our website at clc.tv, or you can download our free app that's available on your phone. Thank you, and God bless.